This is Lisa from Mobile Tech Review, and this is the Lenovo ThinkPad X1 Tablet. This is the first business tablet Lenovo's tried since the Helix, and the Helix was always a little bit of a Frankenstein product with this very strange and complex bottom, fans that were built in. It wasn't everything we'd hoped it would be. So Take Two is something that's much more modern, and very compact, very portable. Look at that. That's really nice. Reminds me of the Samsung Galaxy Tab Pro S in terms of how portable it is, easy to carry around. You know, about the size of a 12-inch MacBook, to make a few more comparisons. Inside we have Intel Core M 6th generation CPUs, SSDs, ample amount of RAM, and some interesting connection modules. We're going to look at it now. So this is the Lenovo ThinkPad X1 Tablet, Lenovo's first business tablet in quite some time, running Windows 10 and Intel Core M Skylake CPUs. It's a two-part, or technically really a three-part affair. I asked Lenovo and they said, yes, indeed, the keyboard will always be in the box, so you don't have to hunt the keyboard, and you get the full-size ThinkPad Pro pen, which normally costs $50, $40 if you're buying it separately, and you get something like the ThinkPad X1 Yoga that comes with a little toothpick stylus that fits in the silo. In this case, there is no room for a silo here, and so therefore they could only give you an external pen. So that's a good thing. And this is Wacom AES technology. That's the newer Wacom technology. It's a bit more affordable, but it's also still very good. 2048 levels of pressure sensitivity, palm rejection, all that good stuff. And there's a quadruple A pen that lives in the barrel here, not unlike Synaptics pens and N-Trig pens that we've seen on products like Surface Pro 4 that uses N-Trig. For those of you who are wondering how you are going to carry your pen and not lose it, this pen always ships with this little plastic doohickeys here. And this goes into the USB 3.0 port. Yes, the tablet does have one of those. So you can clip it to the side of the tablet for transit, and it's robust. It's not going to get lost. It's actually more effective than the magnet that Surface Pro 4 uses. The tablet ships with a, it says in big numbers and letters there, 45-watt charger. So that's actually the standard capacity of a laptop charger, but in this kind of brick style here instead, a little square, some cord, a decent length of cord, not as long as your usual laptop kind of charger, but you get the idea. The tablet has a 12-inch IPS display, and it's a very good display. You know, Lenovo often lets us down a little bit with the quality of their ThinkPad displays. This one has great characteristics. We'll talk about that in depth in a minute. It is 2160 by 1440 resolution, so it's a high-resolution display. The tablet by itself weighs 1.7 pounds. It's pretty light, and even with the keyboard, it's about 3 ounces less than Surface Pro 4, so it's around 2.4 pounds, 2.35 pounds or so. Compact, easy to carry. It has magnesium inner frame, the usual magnesium alloy, and PPS plastic. It's an injection molded plastic for the casing. It feels pretty sturdy. It doesn't flex much, although if I twist it a little bit I can make the stand pop out a little bit, but that's a little abusive to be twisting something like that. Lenovo says that the back can be removed to upgrade the internals. I'm sure RAM is soldered on as always. The SSD, which is a SATA-3 SSD, should be accessible in there. Now, I tried. There's no service manual out for this yet, and I took off the 2 visible screws on the bottom and behind the kickstand and started prying the back off, and it came off, but the display panel bezel flexed a lot, so I stopped, because Lenovo is real good to us with their review units. They say you can do anything you want to it, but it's the only one you get, and I didn't want to disfigure this or break it before we did our video review, so stay tuned for the written review where I get instructions on how to actually open this up without destroying it. The kickstand is released with a lever over here, and it's resistance-based. That part is very easy, but after that it gets very stiff. So the idea is that it stays solid on the table. But you have to open up about that much before it works. So for those of you who want to draw on it, you have to have it at that angle. You can't go down as low as this. That is not the end of the world, though, because you can use it like so. And that's maybe a little steeper than I would like for drawing, but it's not bad either. The kickstand is stiff enough to be effective. It doesn't really wobble a lot. I mean, you really have to, that's stiffer than a lot of laptops, let's put it that way. And you can go down this far, you can go down this far and still have resistance support, and that's the point where it just collapses. So you get the idea of the range that you have right there, and it goes all the way to almost upright, which is probably more upright than most people would want. So in the box you get this, well, iconic ThinkPad keyboard, just 12 inches in size, a little smaller than normal. It's even got backlighting. 1.35 millimeters of key travel. It's very pleasant to type on, albeit it's a small layout. It is 12 inches, so it depends on how you do with smaller keyboards. I adjusted to it pretty quickly, and I found it very pleasant to type on. Good key damping, not noisy, even though it's, you know, it's going to have a hollow effect against the desk like that. There's not much echo. The only thing that does make a bit of noise is the trackpad, but Lenovo doesn't tend to have the quietest trackpads. And you even get the nav point pointer over here and the discrete hardware buttons up top for that, which is pretty cool. And this is fairly rigid too. It's sturdier than the Surface Pro 4, which is a bit more flexible. For those of you who find Surface Pro 4 a little bit weird, this is going to feel normal. Sure, less travel than you would find on a ThinkPad X260 or something like that, but it's good. The back is rubbery and grippy. It does show fingerprints, and this looks like leather. They did a really nice job of finishing this and making it look good. And you'll see there's a magnetic pogo pin connector, and that's how it connects to the bottom of the tablet. Yes, just like Surface. So you take it, you do that, you get the same surface like Thank. And you can either use it with the keyboard flat on the desk if you like, or you can put it up like that. And they even suggest you could try to find an intermediary. I didn't have much luck getting it to stay. The magnets hold it firmly in place there, so there you go. It's a little laptop now. So the bottom edge is much simpler and less contraption-like than the ThinkPad Helix was, certainly. It's a pretty clean look. You got your pogo connectors right here to connect to the keyboard, and this little lever. Now, what could this be for? So you slide that, this comes off, and you have a piece of plastic that you don't do much with because it's just there to cover up the stuff on the bottom. And you can see here we have more connectors. That's because there are optional modules to connect to the bottom of this, and perhaps better thought out than the LG G5's smartphone modules here. Lenovo has 3 in the works. One of them is the productivity module. It adds 5 hours of additional battery life. It has a battery in the this thing that plugs into the bottom, HDMI port, USB 3.0 port. That's going to be around $150, I believe. There's also going to be a projector module. Those of you who follow Lenovo's Android tablets know they love to include projectors in the rotating hinge barrel. That will plug on here. I have HDMI port as well. And lastly, there's the Intel 3D RealSense camera module. For those of you who need to use the depth sensing camera, that's probably more for vertical market work than anything else. So those will just clip on right here, and it's much cleaner way of doing things than the Helix, certainly, and it's an interesting way of expanding the possibilities. And on this side, we have what amounts to pretty much all the ports. We have a USB-C 3.1 Gen 1 port there. So that not only handles charging the tablet, it can do USB storage with adapters, and it can do display out as well. So you're probably going to want to find something that does both charging and monitor at the same time, because most of the time if you're going to dock it on your desk, that's what you need. Of course, alternatively, if you get that productivity module, that also has a OneLink Plus dock for Lenovo's dock adapters. We have a USB 3.1 standard port there. That's one of the 2 stereo speakers, and a mini display port. So it pretty much mirrors the ports that Surface Pro 4 has, but it throws in that USB-C 3.1 port. And on top over here, we have the fingerprint scanner, the nice modern lay your finger on it, and that works with Windows Hello, and it works pretty well. And on this side over here, not much to talk about. Another stereo speaker, Kensington lock slot. You got your volume controls, your headphone jack, and the power button. The power button, I love to hate the power button. It sticks out a lot, really, relatively speaking, and it's very easy to press it. It's not one of those stiff little buttons. It's not one of those ones you press and hold to turn it on. So turning it upside down in the bag, conk, it would turn on. It's just too easy to activate, honestly, when you have the thing in transit. But, well, next time, hopefully they'll use a stiffer button or one that doesn't stick out quite so much. On the back, we not only have the glowing little eye for the ThinkPad logo right there, we have an 8-megapixel camera that's pretty decent with a flash. And there's a 2-megapixel camera in the front. That's one nice thing about two-in-ones that are more tablet-y in design. They tend to have actually better front-facing cameras, so you'll look a little less noisy and grainy when you're doing Skype video chat. So the display, it's mostly all good news here, and Lenovo often falls behind the competition when it comes to color gamut. They usually do pretty good on brightness. This one, indeed, is both bright, really bright, 365 nits of brightness, so it competes well with Surface Pro 4 there. And it has good color gamut, 75% of Adobe RGB and full sRGB. So it's pretty much up there with Surface Pro 4 and a lot of other consumer laptops, and certainly a lot better than the Helix that we first reviewed with Windows 8 that had about 50% of Adobe RGB. Black levels are decent at 0.47 at max brightness, so the resulting contrast ratio, which is the comparison between black levels and full brightness, is 7:60:1. My first reaction when I took it out of the box and looked at the screen was, oh, this is nice, Lenovo's done well. Now the bad news. Well, it's coated in Gorilla Glass, that part's good, but this is a very, very reflective display. Even just shooting this video, it's been a challenge for us because it's reflecting everything in the room and the lights and all that sort of thing. So yes, you can adjust your coif with your comb while looking at your reflection in the display. Happily, it is quite bright, so you can compensate for that glare, but outdoor use can be a bit annoying because it's like a mirror. The ThinkPad X1 Tablet is available with Intel 6th generation Skylake Core M CPUs. Those are the lower power fanless CPUs. So for those of you who had a Helix that was always a huffing and a chuffing, this one is not going to do that. It's not ever going to get hot in my experience. Warm, sometimes not hot, and no fans, no noise. That's the good part. Core M, of course, has less horsepower than Core i3, Core i5, and they fall somewhere in between the Core M CPUs. So for light work, it's fine. For even some moderate work, Core M has come a long way, and Skylake really has impressed us so far with the performance levels. That said, if you're a real heavy-duty user, if you're going to be using this to use Corel Painter 2016, which is a heavy program, I saw lag when drawing, and it really got in the way of my being able to draw. But some lighter programs like ArtRage, for example, were just fine. OneNote, note-taking, absolutely not a problem. MS Office, not a problem. If you're going to be using this for Photoshop, yep, the filters are going to take a bit longer. And Lightroom, I'm never a fan of Lightroom on the Core M. Even a dual-core CPU sometimes is not the best, and I wish for a quad-core, but fast storage can mitigate that. And we do have SSDs inside. They are SATA-3 interface, not PCIe NVMe SSDs. You can get it with a 256 gig like ours or a 512 gig SSD. For the CPUs available, there is the Core M5-6Y57. That's a 1.1 gigahertz Core M. Turbo boosts higher than that, so don't worry, it doesn't spend its whole life running that slowly. That's what we have in ours. And by the way, we have 8 gigs of RAM also, and ours costs about $13.50, and that includes the keyboard and the pen, so this is not cheap change. There's also a Core M7-6Y75, 1.2 gigahertz available. In either case, you'll get Intel HD 515 graphics. And you can see our score here on PC Mark 8 Home Accelerated 2623. That's a fairly decent score there. And again, performance falls somewhere between a Core i3 and a Core i5. It's not bad at all, really. Geekbench 3, 2827 for the single core, 5078 for the multi-core test. If you want to compare that to a Core i5 Skylake generation CPU like you might find in the ThinkPad X1 Carbon or Yoga, those would be scoring in the low 6,000s to mid 6,000s for the multi-core score there. So this is behind, but it's not behind by a terrible amount either. Now, W prime, which tests how quickly it can compute pi, scored 25.9 seconds versus about 16.5 seconds for a Core i5 Skylake laptop with a dual-core ULV CPU. So that's a test that really shows you pure CPU performance there, and obviously it takes a bit longer computationally. So that means any computational task that's heavy, like crunching big spreadsheets in Excel, that sort of thing, it's going to take a bit longer. But again, it's been fluid, it's been fast. I haven't found this to be a laggy machine except when trying to use Lightroom and Corel Painter. And I'll demo this so you can see Corel Painter in action, some other drawing programs. So how about battery life? We expect tablets to have relatively long battery life often, but that's not always the case. Surface Pro 4 is no Energizer Bunny, neither is it a Lenovo Miix 700, which is the consumer version, for lack of a better word, of this ThinkPad X1 tablet. Well, 37 watt-hour battery. Intel Core M really is more about being cool and quiet, being no fan, more than it is about battery life improvements. So about 6 hours doing light productivity and streaming video. If you're pushing it hard, doing lots of Photoshop filters, compiling code, you'll get shorter run times, of course, but given how bright the display is, I've been running it on 35% brightness level, which would be about 120 nits in our tests, and Wi-Fi on and active, and we're doing about 6 hours, sometimes 5.5, but more like 6 most often. Now there is a productivity module again with a 5 hours worth of additional battery, so keep that in mind, but it's not going to be some, wow, look at this, I kicked the iPad's butt, I run so long on a charge kind of product. Not really so much. And for those of you who are also considering Surface Pro 4 here, so you can see them side by side, similar sizes, similar design philosophy, just a different way of executing the kickstand. Lenovo's is essentially upside down. The nice part is that the metal won't dig into your legs if you're using it wearing shorts or something like that, but otherwise real close in a lot of measures. If you folks would like to see a smackdown between these two, shout out in the comments and we can make it happen. So how about inking with the included Wacom AES pen branded as the ThinkPad Pen Pro? Works just fine. Honestly, you get palm rejection here, though. Occasionally, I'll accidentally trigger something on screen. But it's smooth, it's fluid, there are levels of pressure sensitivity, it's quick. Certainly something like Windows Journal, which we're using here, or OneNote can keep up just fine. It's lovely, lovely for note-taking. And the fact that it's relatively compact and light makes it even more pleasant. Now, how about a program like ArtRage? ArtRage uses modern Windows Ink APIs, if you like, and it's pretty lightweight program, so it's good match for the Intel Core M here, where we occasionally saw a little bit of lag and stuff. Now, this is pretty good and pretty natural right here, and it's doing a nice job of blending in my colors. Control is fine there. I switch to the pencil, and you can see I'm getting a variety of lines. My hands are not on the screen, in part because, well, I'm drawing on this corner. But I could rest my hand on the screen here and make a total mess of the painting right now by drawing black lines on our lovely sunset. You see it didn't mark up here at all. It follows the pen perfectly well, like that. If you keep going, you get a little bit of lag. And if I want a light line, light and thin, heavy line, works well. I would show you Clip Studio Paint, but there's a pen offset of about 3 inches for some reason in that program, so that's not going to work out. So I'll show you the free version of Mischief instead. And there you can see it's keeping up. I'm not going too fast. And how about jitter? I'm not the smoothest, slow line drawer. In fact, I tend to draw pretty fast. I'm not seeing a whole lot of terrible jitter there. Wacom does a good job with that. Pressure sensitivity, of course, is there. If I press heavy, it goes heavier. Now let's see what happens when we go really fast. It's quite good. For some reason, Mischief usually misses the beginning of my stroke, but not always. But after that, it keeps up with not too much lag. That's certainly very, very usable. If I was drawing, let's see, like that, it's not getting in my way at all. So there you have it. And lastly, I'll show you Corel Painter 2016, just because it is a very heavyweight professional program. It has a lot of features, but it also is a place where I often saw the pen lagging here. So here we have Corel Painter 2016. I'm using the grainy dry brush right now. And that's actually doing pretty smoothly. Now let's switch to something you'd probably draw more quickly with, like a pencil or a crayon. And I'm going to go with the vine charcoal. And it's starting to fall behind a bit from where I am. So if I'm trying to draw quickly, sometimes it loses it, other times it's just fine. Palm rejection, again, that's up to the hardware, not the software, so that works quite well. It's decent, it's just a little unpredictable, where sometimes it can just totally fall far enough behind that I make a missed drawing, but it's bearable. So that's the Lenovo ThinkPad X1 tablet, available soon. Like I said, pricing looks to be around probably $1,100 to $1,600, depending how you configure it. It's a two-piece ensemble. You get the keyboard with it. It competes with Surface Pro 4, obviously in the price range, and also for a lot of the features, including things like a built-in kickstand, detachable magnetic keyboard, pen in the box for a change. Yay, that's always nice from Lenovo. Full-size pen, I mean, not one of those little toothpicky things. It's a good tablet. When I first saw it, I really was crushing on it. And after living with it, you know, occasionally for artwork, it's not quite as fast as I would like. It's bearable. It's okay. For business work, for note-taking, it's just fine. I just kind of wonder if Lenovo could have thought of something a little extra special sauce-wise here, besides those modules, to get us more excited at this price point. Something that's expensive as Surface Pro 4 is a little bit of a hard sell. I'm Lisa from Mobile Tech Review. Be sure to visit our website for the full written review and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more cool tech videos.